My name's Adele Onyango and welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. No, seriously, I have no clue what I'm doing, but I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. Hey you, welcome to another episode of Legally Clueless. I'm so excited that you listen to this podcast. If this is your first time, welcome. It would be dope if you listen to the first episode first, but hey, there are no rules, yes, India. And if it's not your first time, thank you so much for being part of this tribe. Of course, remember you can catch this podcast on social media at Legally Clueless Podcast. That's on Instagram. I've put a link to the page in the description of this episode. And if you want to chit chat about the podcast, I want to eavesdrop. Especially if you post it on Twitter, please use the hashtag Legally Clueless. I am so excited for this particular episode because it features a story by somebody who I deeply respect, I deeply admire. I'm so inspired by her, and her story is just so timely. Listen to this.
I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, a place called Kangemi, born and raised, a place called Third World, God's Forgotten People. My old man used to work at Intercon back then, and then my mom was a stay-home mom. And then when we get to town, you're hungry, but she could only buy a packet of fries and maybe we were like 3. I got laid off a few months ago. I was asking God, okay, what next? I do not know what you want with me right now. And okay, why do I feel like crying? How I heard about me being laid off, I was told the HR wanted to see me. She called me again and she was like, Shakes, you need to come to the office because HR needs to see you. And I was like, am I being fired? So I looked at the assistant and I was like, is that why you've called me here? Is that the reason why you've called me here? You're firing me. You've called me to fire me. No matter how many times I fall, I just know I'll hack.
Definitely a story you want to listen to. It's timely and it's just so magical whenever somebody comes onto this podcast, tells a story and allows themselves to be vulnerable. You know what I mean? But anyway, let me not give away too much. So this might be a short episode. I'm not sure. It's just that I'm not in an okay space. Okay, for 2 reasons. One, I'm just fed up of my laptop, first and foremost. I've spoken about it before. So what happens is whenever there's a Windows update, the laptop refuses to restart, which is just, I don't understand it. And it seems like it's taking people a long time to fix it. But hopefully this week it's going to be fixed once and for all because it's getting a bit exhausting. But the only good reason about this time is that I backed up everything and I have 2 extra laptops. So honestly, it's not as bad as that first time when the laptop wouldn't start up. I hadn't backed up quite a bit. Right now, I'm kind of okay. And my equipment, so I use a USB microphone. I just plug it into whatever laptop and I downloaded the software that I use on all laptops. Let me tell you that last time the laptop refused to start. It was so traumatic. But because I'm a planner, I hate waking up and thinking that things are going to go a certain way because of plans that they should go a certain way. And then technology just does its thing. I really dislike it. Even though I have like contingency plans and everything still runs smoothly. Oh, I don't know. If you're a planner, you understand what I'm saying. The second thing and maybe that's the reason why I'm just overreacting over this stupid laptop. I think I'm having one of those grief dips. Yeah, that's what I'm going to call it. It sounds accurate to call it that because grief like manifests differently. I feel like my grief is very constant. It's there every minute of every day. I think of my mother. In case you don't know, my mom passed away in 2013. But I think about her every single day. There'll be something that comes up and I'll think about her. And so the grief is constantly there, but it just manifests differently. So sometimes it's a memory that I can laugh about and just be like, oh, that was a good time. Sometimes I remember some wisdom she shared or something like that. And then there's sometimes I'm just like angry that she's not here. And then there's sometimes that I want to cry. And there's sometimes like today where I'm a bit in the middle. I can't really put a name or label on the emotion I'm feeling. I just know it's like an emptiness. Well, I'm more aware of the emptiness. I can't explain emotionally, like the tag I'll put on it emotionally, but For sure, I am feeling some type of way. So, how I knew it is I had the strangest dream this week. I dreamt my sisters and I, so I have two sisters, Anne Marie and Amanda. I dreamt that we went on a trip to Diani. And we'd gone on a girls' trip just to relax. And like one of my sisters, Amanda, was giving us a hard time. So we kept moving from resort to resort because she needed one where she can sleep the whole night without tossing and turning. It's funny now, but in the dream, I was just like, this chick, what's up? And then at a point in the dream, one of my exes wrote a full A4 exercise book long letter. Does that make sense? Like the entire book was one long letter, and in the letter he's just talking about why he needed to be allowed to be on this trip. Anyway, so I have this dream, jump onto the WhatsApp group with my sisters. I'm just like, you will not believe what I dreamt last night. So I tell them, and then just through the conversation, what we remembered, or I don't know whether we all remembered, or it was just me and my thoughts, but I remembered that my mom had wanted us to go to India, my sisters, her and I, for a family vacation because we'd never done that. And so she'd been to India once for work and she really loved it. And so she was really adamant in 2012 into 2013, she really wanted us to go to India on a girls' trip. I low-key think my mom, not low-key, I am sure my mom knew she was dying because the trip was one thing that she wanted to happen, but she also wanted us to have a photo shoot, which she actually planned and executed to the point of she got a makeup artist, Barbara Mnishi, who is one of the top photographers in Kenya. I remember she was doing True Love magazine photography back in the day. I don't know about now, but yeah, so we had a whole decked out photo shoot. I remember my sisters and I just being like, hey, this chick, she really loves herself. We were joking about it like that. But in hindsight, I think my mom wanted us to have memories, not only the actual photographs, but just memories in terms of these things we were doing together towards the end. Yeah, so I don't know, can you imagine? Grief gets triggered by the weirdest things. A dream where an ex is writing me an exercise book full. Oh, a letter, because he has to go to Diani, probably on my dime because he is a cheapskate. But can you imagine that dream is what triggered this grief dip that I'm, kind of trying to navigate? So what happens is it's triggered, right? Now, everything else I go through, good or bad, gets rounded off to this grief dip. I like how I've made that an official term. So the next thing is actually good news because the 30th of September is International Podcast Day. And there is a 24-hour live stream event with speakers from 21 different countries. I am one of the speakers, so I'm going to be representing Kenya, and I also happen to be the only African woman making a presentation on this day. So it's a huge monumental thing. I'm happy about it, but the grief dip is knocking. Hello? We know you're proud of yourself and everything, but just let us in. And of course, I start feeling like the one person who would be as proud of me as I am and who really should have gotten a chance to be here because there's certain things and sacrifices she did that have allowed me to be where I am today. So I wanted her to see the fruits of everything she did for me. She's not here, so she can't enjoy these, what would I call this? These moments, right? She can't enjoy these moments with me. And so something that is beautiful, which is representing my country in this thing, becomes tainted by grief. So strange. And so I want to vent about all of these things. And I'm just also with venting, the only person who I would trust, who would be calm, even though I'm sharing stressful things, who is smart enough to give me direction, is not here. So it's like a loop. You get what I mean? It's just, so that's why I don't even have an actual label to express what exactly I'm feeling. It's just, we'll just call it a grief dip. I don't know, but that's where I'm at. And so I was just I don't know, maybe right now I'll just be I'm finished with this episode. Let it just go out the way it is, you know. But no, I really want you to hear the story in this episode. So we're going to keep on pushing. But before we get to 100 African stories in this episode, I really want you to check out the song of the week because it is beautiful. Why I say it is, at the very beginning of the song, it starts with these words: searching for balance, praying for clarity. I was just like, yep. Mark me present. And there's a point where she sings, think we control this shit, but we don't. And I don't know. It's so real. So the name of the song, let me give you the name of the song so it makes more sense. The name of the song is Human. So it's HU space MAN. I've put a link to the video in the description. It is by Green Tea Peng. It's just watch the video first and foremost. It's just art. And the song, please listen to the lyrics. It's just so real. I feel like it could be the Legally Clueless theme song because that's where I was creating this podcast from, a place of acknowledging that a huge part of being human is not knowing and not being in control, right? Just listen to it. Just listen to it. And if you wonder why I don't play the actual song of the week in the podcast, I think it's important to respect creatives and what they create. I do not know the copyright laws. I wouldn't want to play something on here and it doesn't benefit the person who created it. So until I'm clear on that, you'll just have to keep hitting that link in the description and going to listen to the song on a platform where the creator of this art actually gets some benefit. So yeah, let's jump into 100 African stories though. The story in this episode highlights a ripple effect of COVID, where we've seen this happen in different industries, people getting pay cuts, people getting laid off. In the media industry, yes, there's COVID, but part of me also knows that, especially media houses here in Kenya, they didn't adapt to the changing market. And so that plus COVID is the reason for the downtime, and which is why they have to kind of restructure their organizations. It's not a tier COVID thing only because like there's some media houses 1 week into COVID, they were already announcing pay cuts. And I'm just like, aye? COVID has done a lot, like in Apple. One of the ripple effects, of course, is losing your job. And we know many people who are currently trying to navigate through this. There's actually an article that I am going to share a link to in the description. It's by Terian Chebet, who also lost her job back in 2016. She was prepping for her show. If you do not know her, at the time, she was a TV anchor. She was a business news TV anchor, really magnificent at her job. And in 2016, she was prepping for a show. She was called by her boss to be informed that, hey, we need to let go of you. I do know her personally. She is amazing. Her energy is dope. We did a True Love magazine cover together back in the day. When was that actually? I can't even remember the year, but it's probably like 3-4 years ago. And of course, I've met her a couple of times after that. But she wrote an article on her Medium page where she shared tips on what to do when you lose your job. Some of the tips are to do with finances, and there's some really, really good tips in there. So check out the link in the description, maybe for yourself if this is something that you're dealing with now, or you know somebody who could gain from that article. But back to the story in this episode. Shix, oh my God, I absolutely love this young lady. I first saw her on a TV show back in the day because one of the many talents she has is acting. And I always thought her character was so captivating because it was so flawlessly real. It was like she was just being herself. And then fast forward to a couple of years later, I interviewed her while I was at Kiss FM on the show I was presenting on. And her energy was just amazing. You know, it's one of those times where you meet someone for the first time and you're just like, I really want to be friends with this person, but I don't want to be a weirdo as an adult and start asking, hey, can we be friends? Anyway, so I recently just asked her to share her story on this podcast. And when she said yes, I was so excited. I didn't know what story she was going to share. What I did know, though, that it was definitely going to be inspiring. And that it is. 100 African stories on Legally Clueless. Stories from Africa.
Wanjiku Karanja is my name, or Shix. And I'm from Nairobi, Kenya, a place called Kangemi, born and raised, a place called Third World, God's Forgotten People. Anyway, we give it that nickname because before you get to our place in Kangemi, wow, it's a stretch. It's a long stretch. Recently, actually, is when to Walami, is when now we had the road tarmacked. But right now, because of everyone, how the population is, it's no longer there now. The vibandas all over. So you can't even tell. But born and raised in Kangemi, proud. Schooled in Westlands Primary. Then went to Nakuru, boarding school, class 6. Then high school, I went to a school called Mirithu. A lot happened. I left in Form 1. I went to Embu. So I boarded since 1999 to 2005. So if I'd say I know how it is to be, like to just kujitegemea. And there's a lot that I appreciate about life. Like a few days ago, I was just sitting down and I was like, you know what? There's some things that we don't have in life. And there's some things that you actually blame your parents for, but you don't. If you could understand then what they were going through, then you would know that they did everything that they could. Well, I'm speaking on my behalf, yeah, because I'm sure for some people it's different. So as for me, back in the day when we were young, I never used to understand how our folks, well, my old man used to work at Intercon back then. And then my mom was a stay-home mom. So I never used to understand how, if we needed to go to town, like she wouldn't go with all of us, or she would leave some of us behind. And then when we get to town, you're hungry, you want to eat, but she could only buy a packet of fries, and maybe we were like 3, and we would share it. So no soda, nothing. It's just a packet of fries, and we'll share it. So you become pissed. I used to become really pissed, and I was like, why are we sharing a packet of fries? Why can't you buy everyone to have their own packet? Or I share with my sister or my brother and you have yours. I never used to understand that then. Or menda mahali, you've gone somewhere and they cannot afford to do some things. December holidays, our neighbors used to get outfits, new outfits for Christmas and stuff. For some of us, it was my old man would go for their books first. Come January, you're going back to school. And then we were 3. I was the last born then. My sister came in 1996. So before 96, when was the last born? I used to look at things and I was like, why? Like, why can't you not offer this when we ask for it? Why can't you, you know? And only a few days ago, I was watching, my sister was abroad. They had to relocate because they had got a job there. I was looking at my nieces. They don't want to be there. I think I'm mixing my tenses. But she's there now. And my nieces are there as well. But they're not comfortable in the place. Because of COVID. And also, not racism per se, but it's just like the communication barrier. Yeah, communication barrier. It's a problem. It's French all through. So you cannot communicate. I went to visit them there in January, and honestly, I was like, yo. So I get to the airport, the security is there, and they want to check my luggage, and I'm there, and he's saying something, and I don't know French, and I'm like, Anglais. He just looked at me and told me, go. They don't have time to start translating for you. You don't understand. You need to understand. Something of the sort with my nieces complaining about being there. They want to come back home. You end up appreciating where you are. You appreciate where you've been raised. Back to my story. I got laid off a few months ago. And I was asking God, okay, what next? What next? What do I do? It's not like I've achieved what I really wanted to achieve at a certain age. But I'm not complaining. But at the same time, it's too abrupt. I know I wanted to resign. I know I wanted to call it quits. But not this one. I think it was just a shocker. Eventually, I was okay. And I would say, you know what? It's fine. God will provide. And then it hit me to my story now when I was a child. My mom could not afford buying 2 packets of fries. And that's why she would even get angry by telling us we cannot go with her to town because she couldn't afford. She wouldn't want to be embarrassed because, one, we would be very upset, especially me. I'd be very upset. Or even I would say I don't want to eat just because she couldn't afford another packet of fries. So there was that bit. It makes me realize you need to appreciate the little that you're getting. It doesn't matter whether it's 100 or it's 50 or it's 10 or it's nothing. My childhood, I cannot say I suffered, but I look back and I'm like, they struggled. My parents struggled. There's a time even I told my mom, I wish I knew. I wish I would understand. I could have understood back then. I wouldn't pressure you utupeleke town. I wouldn't, because I know how it hurt her then. So even now, she'll joke about it and she was like, do you know how you used to get upset? Do you know how you used to cry? And I was there wondering, I only have 100 shillings. So I've bought fries na nimebakisha fare. Mpaka I used to cry. Just I would cry and I was like, "Hi Lord, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I was a child. I'm sorry." I thank God where I am right now. It's not where I used to be. Amenifungulia milango mob. I don't know. To be honest, I always say it's His grace because Adele, I won't tell you how I ended up on radio. I do not know. But a door opened and I grabbed it and nika fanya the best I could. TV happened on my end. I don't know how. I just know I used to love acting. I just know I used to enjoy entertaining people, making people laugh. But I cannot call myself a comedian. People end up laughing and I'm like, oh, it was funny. And I remember being on stage and now this is a live audience back at Heartstrings. And people used to enjoy my acting. But I would sit down when we're doing the content creation. I'd sit down and guys would come up with ideas. Guys would come up with lines. And I'm blank. To some point where I'd ask the director, do you think I need to be in this scene? Because I don't have anything to say. And you'd like, no, stay there. You always come up with something, so you stay there. And at times I used to feel, and yeah, even when guys used to call themselves, okay, fine, this is a creative team, I'd remove myself from that because I don't think I am. They say something and you're like, wow, I wish I would have said it that way. You're like, whatever I say is not good enough. Whatever I do is not good enough. But my friends are doing it actually way better. Radio, I used to look at how guys used to present and I'd beat myself up for it because I know I can do it. But am I doing the right thing really? Am I doing how it's supposed to be done? Am I delivering it? Am I good enough? You know, enough times I used to beat myself up and I was like, you know, my friends actually used to intervene and be like, Shakes, imagine you're good on air. And I tell them, imagine, no, I don't think so. Because my co-host, he's really good. To be honest, Adele, I'll tell you something about, and I think this is where I'll say it. I don't know that I should say it or not, but I took up a job, reggae, not because I knew reggae, but I told God, you know what, this is an opportunity. It has been given to me. Can I do it? Yes, I can. And I'll do it. And I was like, I don't know anything about reggae. I do not know. This is the first time I'm talking about it, and maybe I'll be bashed about it, but I didn't know. I did not know. I learned. And I was good at it. And I became good at it. And I'd learn every day. I made it my job to learn. And I learned. I think it took me like a few months and I was good at it. I made a few blunders, of course, on radio, on air. I did a couple, but I managed. And Nanika Kwasa, and that's why I've been on radio 7 years, because I learned my thing. I told God, you know what, umenipate job. Missy, I do not know what you want with me right now. And okay, why do I feel like crying? I do not know. I was like, you know what, God umenipate a chance. You've given me this opportunity. I do not know how to do a show. Yes, I was on radio, but I was a sports anchor. I don't even know how I got that also, but I did it. And now here I am, Hot 96, a radio presenter. I just did it. Here I am 7 years later. I may have gotten laid off, but maybe also it was about time. When I got laid off, guys were not even telling me, yo, Shakes, sorry. Guys were like, It was about time, Shakes. You were too comfortable. Shakes, you were comfortable. 7 years. Still doing radio, beginning of this year. When I went back to work, I was actually from leave. I'd come from visiting my sister. So now I had to go back to work. And I was like, I had so much, how do I put it? I was too frustrated. That is now last year, 2019. So January, I had said, you know what? New beginnings. I'm going to start afresh, positive vibes. But come the day of going back to work, I was like, not now. Can I extend with a week? I even called my boss. I was like, can I extend with 1 week? Hey, Shakes, it's about time you came back to work. I was like, I don't think I'm ready, but it's all good. It's fine. I'll come back. I went back to work and I was like, yo, do I need to be here really? am I giving my all? Are my bosses okay? Because also it was not good because I kept jumping from show to show. So I was losing relevance on my show because I did, since July last year, I was on people's shows. I wasn't on my show. And fans were asking, Shix, where is Shix? Shix ako wapi? Tunamtaka kwa show, we want her back on the show, where is she? As in, I used to go to work in fear, in the sense that I want everything to be perfect so that I do not end up being blamed for something that I've worked hard for, but it's not being appreciated. So I used to really feel like I was not enough, I was not good enough for it. And most of the time, I'd stay home. That times I'd actually get sick and I'd go to hospital and they'd say, I'm sick, but I'm not sick. There's nothing wrong with you, but we can tell. I used to have migraines. My God, enough. There are times even when my voice will just go. And you're like, why? Why? And kumbe it's just ni tension, ni stress. Ni stress ilikuwa inanimaliza. And then I had lost weight. Right now I've gained weight. Mpaka I'm confused. I had lost so much weight to the point that even my mom now walikuwa niambia there's some drugs that I should take so that at least, it was really bad. Before I got laid off, it's like I knew it. To be honest, I would feel it. And there's a time I was with my friends and I told them, let me tell you, I don't think I'm here for long. And even when I got my friend asked me, Kwani you knew? Did you know? I told them, I don't think I'll be here for long. Somehow, clearly, it's like I was being prepared for it. Because how I heard about me being laid off, I was told the HR wanted to see me. It was a phone call from my boss. The HR wanted to see me and I was like, why? I've never had any issues with HR. Why now? Why? And it was after now we had started doing the shifts thing. Like we couldn't all be in the studio. So 1 week in, my co-host the other week, Evo. Yes, because of COVID. So I panicked. Like of late, since 2018, I started having panic attacks. So I was panicking. I couldn't do anything. My sister was so upset because she was looking at my younger sister now. She was looking at me and she was like, are you okay? I was shaking. I couldn't breathe at times. I kept calling her, is everything okay? Just tell me what's going on. And she was like, no, just come to the office. I sent my show prep. She called me again and she was like, Shix, you need to come to the office because HR needs to see you. And I was like, am I being fired? And she was like, Shix, just come to the office. I called her immediate boss. Is everything okay? And I was like, it's okay, Shix, just come to work, everything is okay. So I was okay. So when he told me that, I was like, okay, fine, maybe it's just something, maybe it's medical cover, maybe it's just, I don't know, something. So I went actually straight to the HR's office, and when I got there, I saw a few people and I was like, okay, it's never this full, what's going on? So I look at another lady, she was a guesser FM. I looked at her and she was really upset. And I saw her holding an envelope and I was like, what's going on? Are you okay? Because that was just me at work. I used to say hi to everyone. I don't even know their names, but I could say hi to everyone. And I saw she was upset and I was like, are you okay? Is everything okay? And she was like, Shix, ujui? I was like, sijui nini? People are getting laid off. And I was like, what? So I looked at the assistant and I was like, is that why you've called me here? Is that the reason why you've called me here? You're firing me? You've called me to fire me. And I was like, unfortunately, Shix, people are getting laid off, but mtenge kwa HR and everything shall be explained to you. And I was like, okay, what was the criteria? Is it just COVID? Really? Because already there was a 20-30% that you guys were chomoing. So is it? And I was like, I can't say much, Shix. Just wait. Those were the worst 30 minutes of my life because I could see people walking and walk out and I'm next. It was the worst. I couldn't cry. Somehow I was okay, but somehow I was not okay. It was just a confusing moment for me. I went in, HR says hi, she's like, yo, I know you've heard what was going on, and I was like, yeah, I've heard. So it's how it is. This is, unfortunately, we have to let you go. I was like, it's okay. Like, what to say, what to do, it's fine. I understand. And she was like, so zile maswali tu mtu ulizwa, the usual questions, do you have any loan anywhere, do you have all those? And I was like, I'm okay. She was like, fine, we are serving you this notice right now. You're on, what is that name? Leave. I've forgotten the name. I've forgotten the name. So I couldn't work and I was like, I can't go to my last show today. I can't do just try and just tell people that's it. I'm going, I'm leaving, that's it. No. They're like, no. Unfortunately, no. That one you have to liaise with your boss, with your immediate boss, and I was like, wow, okay, sawa. So I left. I went across the road. There's a club called the Q Lounge. Before it was shut down, government COVID issues. So yeah, I went there, nikaka, met with a few people, took my beers. I was still sulking, but I was okay. Till date, I usually say Haijai Gunga. It has never hit me because I was fine. Yes, it was confusing. I didn't expect it that fast, but it happened. Gunga. I was out, I think, 2019 January, I think, because me was done. I was done. And my friends were like, Shakes, you were comfortable. So that's you being told, you know what, on to the next. And I was like, fine, on to the next, which is. I had thought of doing so many things online, but just the thought of me thinking about it inanipatia wasiwasi, and then I stopped. And my pal told me, we spoke with her yesterday, and she was like, it's called something paralysis. Like, you know what you want to do, but just the thought of it, you just freak out. And that's where I am right now. I really want to do a lot. There's what I want to do. There's what I know I am doing, but I think it's how to execute it. It freaks me out. I panic. My brain just freezes. Niko hapo, but the fact that I've come, honestly, Adele, I appreciate it. A girl raised in Kangemi, all the way to rubbing shoulders with people who are really well known, which I thank God for it, because the same people have come to be good friends who have helped me in so many ways, which I'm really appreciative of, as in, I thank God. Every time when I go home, I just say, you know what, God, thank you. Because I don't know. Ata kesho sijui, I do not know. But somehow I just relate. I relate with all these people. I relate with what I'm doing. I learn every day. I always say, it's not me to plan. God has better plans. And the fact that you've given it your all, you've done your best. And it worked. Doesn't matter whether it worked for 5 minutes, it worked for 10 seconds. It worked. It made you smile at some point. Do not regret that. Now on to the next. And also just God mbele. Like for me, I think it's just being raised. My dad he's really strict when it comes to church and God. Same as his mother, my late grandmother. So I always put God first, and I know He has a way. There's something. I always believe that no matter how many setbacks, no matter how many times I fall, I just know I'll hack one way or another. It may not be soon enough, but I know there's light at the end of the tunnel. Sijui na wapi naenda. To be honest, Adele, I hate the question where people always ask, so where? After 5 years, where do you see yourself? And I don't know. It's one day at a time. I do not know after 5 years where I'll be, hopefully, like you said, alive. But doing bigger things, better things, learning, because we keep learning each and every day. You cannot say I've learned everything. It's a day at a time for me. It's one step at a time. And just putting my faith up there, because I know with God all things are possible.
Catch more African stories in the next episode of Legally Clueless. Wasn't that just so inspiring? It's always so magical when a storyteller comes on this podcast and just allows themselves to be vulnerable and be real about where they're at in that present moment. It's beautiful. I identified with so many things she said in her story, especially the point where she's talking about when she really didn't like her job and she'd be sickly, having panic attacks. Her voice would just be disappearing. I remember at that point while we're recording, I was like, me too. It's so funny how the things that are happening in your mental manifest physically, right? You always think you have control over your thoughts, but really your thoughts have control over you. I also just want to spend a bit of time on fear of failure because that came up in the story, and it's something that has paralyzed me on more than one occasion. Fear of failure when I'm about to start a new project is real. And so I had to tell myself that it's absolutely normal. And then what I've learned over time, especially through using my Mind Shift app, which I'll put a link to in the description of this episode. It's an app that was made specifically for those of us who've been diagnosed with anxiety, and it uses cognitive behavioral therapy. Yeah, so that's the foundation most of the exercises on that app are built on. And one of the things it's taught me through restructuring my thoughts is when I have these fears, like fear of failure, that I should first define what failure would look like for that particular project or the thing that I'm so worried about failing. And then after defining what failure looks like, it'll be very clear to me what I have the power over, right? So do I have the power to reduce the chances of it failing? Does it require me to learn a skill or outsource a skill? Does it require me to research more? So then I'm very clear on what I have control over and what I, even if I get anxious about it and get fearful about it, it's above me now. Remember that meme? It's above me now, sir. No, but seriously, also to just keep reminding myself that if I do fail, allow myself some time to just feel it. Failure stings. It doesn't feel nice. So allow myself to feel it, short amount of time, not to prolong it, and then allow myself to learn from it and then keep moving. So I don't know if that's going to help you if fear of failure is something you're going through. I only share because I know how paralyzing fear of failure is. It's just, it's the worst. So remember, you too can share maybe a song that you'd want on the Song of the Week or your story demo because you want to share your story on this podcast. You can share all that to the Legally Clueless hotline number, which is +254. I am yet to memorize this number, Jameni. Okay, give me a second. Where is such? Oh, there we go. +254 768 628 790. So in terms of wanting to share your story on this podcast, all you have to do is record a 1-minute story demo. You can do that via WhatsApp audio note. Telling me a bit about the story you want to share, send it to that number and we shall take it from there. Another thing though, because this is like our fun, happy, safe space. If you listen to an episode of the podcast and you resonate with it, you find it relatable and you want to share something about that, you can also send me a WhatsApp audio note to the Legally Clueless hotline number.
Hi Adele, I'm fine. Hope you had a great week. I found episode 70 basically, very powerful, hard-hitting, and so raw. You have me in awe of, your work and how you have this incredible platform and you reach many people of all ages because even I'm 17 and in fact the entire podcast itself, I love how it's honest, passionate, and just generally raw. Like, these are people from different walks of life, different ages. It's just so beautiful, how you are able to find these people and collaborate with them and, just share their stories pretty much in all of your works.
Oh man, thank you so much. These messages that you send really do warm my heart. I wish you knew, just coming off the back of fear of failure, I really didn't expect this podcast to be relatable to so many people. And I was just, let me not get in my feels because I'm already in such an emotional space. But I just know it really means so much to me. It really means so much to me. So thank you. Thank you for the positive messages, the positive vibes. Let me not start. Let me not start crying. My tears are always ready for action. I can just feel them now. Like, hey, are we up? Are we up? Is it our time to shine? So just know I'm very thankful. Episode 70 was, yes, a doctor and his Superman. Big shout out to Musa for being so vulnerable about his grief. I remember that particular episode helped me understand quite a few things about my own grief. So yeah, that was definitely a powerful episode. So remember, if this is your first time listening to this podcast, new episodes go up every Monday online. And this podcast is syndicated on Trace Radio in Kenya. You can catch it there every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. and at 8 p.m. as well. I'll put a link to the Trace Radio website because it has a list of all the frequencies and you can also stream the podcast there. That's it for this episode of Legally Clueless. You can share this podcast with your friends. You can keep it for yourself. I'm not judging. Just make sure you're here next week for the next episode.